Welcome to my guide on Lost Oasis. Here are the timestamps for the topics in this video.
Between the ice and the heat is the Lost Oasis.
Lost Oasis is a post-apocalyptic survival MMO. After a certain event, the Earth had stopped rotating around its axis, causing one side to be extremely hot and the other frozen solid. The last human survivors, nomads, have to continually travel to stay in a constantly shifting habitable region. There is no barrier in-game between different regions, but it can take a while to travel between them. So, if you're playing with friends or a clan, then I suggest that you coordinate with them on which server you want to go to. After you decide on which server to join, you can then customize your character and change your in-game name. I will only add my clan tag to my Steam name. You will then spawn in what's called a Cradle Oasis, which is a special oasis only for new players. Once you leave the Cradle Oasis, you will not be able to come back. It only has some basic resources, so in order to progress, you will eventually want to move to a different one.
You have spent your entire life rowing the flotilla, and now you have paid your debt. You will be taken to a pit in the wastes. Survive and return to me. I have more to tell you.
You will then be greeted by an optional tutorial made up of many parts. You can ignore it if you want, however it's a good idea to complete at least some of it, as it does give you XP and some items as you progress. F3 hides current tutorial objectives, and if you press F3 again, it will give you more information. F1 unhides all the keybinds. The first keybind is P for player stats. I recommend going for health, damage and mobility. In the Walker's Crafting tab, you can use flots, an in-game currency, to increase the levels of the walkers that you build. There are a maximum of 100 levels, and as you can see, the first level costs 100 flots, but the price increases for each new level that you buy, so to buy one level at level 50 you would have to pay around 10,000. The levels give your walkers slightly better stats and other improvements. For example, at level 10 you unlock an extra module. If you bought levels after building a walker, you can upgrade it to bring it to the current level. Next up we have I for inventory. O brings up the tech tree, but I'll come back to it in a minute. C brings up a menu of what you can craft on hand. B is for building structures and walkers. There is also disassembly mode, which will give you some of the resources back. G brings up information about your clan, such as ranks and who's online. You can also edit ownership of your walker, restricting or giving access to your clan to use it. In the bottom left corner is your hydration level. If it ever goes to 0, your stamina will start to decrease, and when your stamina runs out, you start taking damage. Next to your hydration level is your stamina bar. It's mostly used to power walkers without sails, but is also slightly used during combat and when you run. The red bar is for your health. If it goes to 0, you will be downed, but not dead. You can still be revived by your teammate, or you will self-revive after 30 seconds. If you take any more damage, you will be sent to respawn. The tech tree is split into 5 subsections. Vitamins let you craft potions with temporary status effects. Equipment is anything your character wears, like armor, weapons, and tools. Crafting is more like a step to get to other items. I especially recommend the stomping station because it lets you produce much more water. Construction lets you build bases and ballistas. And finally, walkers and their upgrades. A dinghy is a well-rounded walker for 1 or 2 people, and my personal favorite. Toboggan is perfect for traders because it's fast and carries a lot of cargo, and Stiletto has a lot more floor space for larger clans. There are also spider walkers, which are very cheap to make but don't have any floor space. Of course, as you progress through the game, you will unlock even larger and better walkers, but you can discover that for yourself. In order to research your technology, you will need fragments and later tablets which are made from fragments. This is a physical resource that can be looted from Rupus, other players, but mainly through ruins scattered across the map. The most common ruin consists of a package that can be picked up straight away, an old chest that first needs to be damaged, and the hidden bag hanging above. The second, and in my opinion the best type of ruin, again consists of a package that can be picked up. This time, in order to damage the box, you need to drag it around using a harpoon shot from a ballista. Using this method you get around 20 fragments, which is a lot more than what you get from a common ruin. The third type of ruin also requires a ballista, but this time instead of a harpoon, it needs to be shot with one firebolt. There is a large variety of maps in Last Oasis that feature unique biomes with different resources. There are also event maps available for a short time. These are smaller maps that will have a special feature, for example a giant sandworm, which will be tough to defeat, but will greatly reward those that do. There are also timed events like sandstorms, which greatly reduce your visibility, and eclipses, which sort of work like nighttime. In order to leave the Oasis, travel to the edge of the map where you can log out. Your walker will then be stored in the lobby, untouchable by other players. Even if this Oasis burns up to 5 of your walkers will be transferred to a new Oasis automatically. Given that you have enough water stored in your walker, you can now travel to another Oasis. The water required for the trip goes up exponentially with distance. After the trip, your gears will be full of sand, preventing you from traveling to another Oasis straight away. However, it doesn't actually slow down or otherwise affect your walker in the game. In order to remove sand from the gears, just drive over water or some grassland. Later in the game, you can also build a hose station that uses water to clear your gears. Donkey Crew, the studio that's developing Last Oasis, initially started out as a group of Mountain Blade modders. This is why they decided in favor of using directional melee combat with virtually no ranged weaponry. I am personally not good at PvP, but here is some advice one of the best beta PvPers, TK Nemesis, gave me. Feint your attacks, switch attack directions a lot, don't play too aggressively, don't use slow weapons in a 1v1, and use weapons with longer reach if you're outnumbered for better group control. Grapple your opponent to slow him down. Try to have the same tech level as your opponent or you will be at a disadvantage. That's it for the video. I tried to cover as much as possible, but the depth of this game is simply enormous. So I'm sure you will discover some things for yourself, and it will only keep getting better, so I would wholeheartedly recommend it. I hope my voice didn't sound too tired, as I did have to pull an all-nighter for this. A big thank you to the developers for letting me play in the beta, and for the fact of how thorough and passionate they are about the project. I would also like to shout out my friend Vaticus for giving me a streamer privilege key, so go ahead and definitely check him out, as he will be playing loads of Last Oasis. Thank you.